So let's start talking about those first two terms. Now, container and item are probably more self-explanatory than those bottom terms, so you probably have some kind of idea what they mean. So let's not spend too much time on them, but there is like one little thing that we have to take care of. Now, obviously, container and item mean that you have, in that example, 4 elements. One of them is a container element, and 3 of them are item elements. Now, container is kind of does not have this nice dualism where you can say container and the thing that is inside. If that would have some other nice word, then that would be a bit easier, and that's probably why I will sometimes use other terms for item, like not intentionally, but it's just kind of intuitively happens, like for example child, or sometimes also element. Now with child it would be a little bit easier because then you could say you have a parent, which is the container, and the child is the actual item. But the normal terminology, the basic terminology in Flexbox is container and item. You could also hear the word flex container for that reason. So, okay, so I don't think that there is a lot to argue about the general thing that we have a container and an item. Now, the only tricky thing is that this kind of changes depending on what element you are looking at. Now, let's just imagine for a second that this item element has itself 2 elements inside of it. So now when you start talking about this item, it becomes kind of the container, and those little elements are the items. And now if they would have additional elements, you would kind of play the same game. So you can see that, kind of as we talked about in our visual tree lessons, that you are always having the same pattern that is kind of going down the tree. And that's kind of represented here by this terminology. But apart from that, there is nothing really tricky about it. You always have a container and an item, at least to be able to talk about it, because again, when we will try and talk about this dark outer element. No, I said outer item. That's not what I should say. No, elements are kind of the general neutral thing. So when we talk about this dark element, then we want to say it's a container and it has items. When we talk about one of those items and we want to describe their relationships to the elements inside, then it kind of changes. You change perspective and it becomes the container, and those inner elements are the items, and so on and so forth. So just be careful to always pause for a second, think, do I understand what context are we in? What is the element we're actually talking about? And then you will be fine.